So we went and saw I.S.S, which is a really weird way to spell is. Is. Is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw it.
So, obviously, unless you're a total idiot, this isn't an acronym for the International Space Station.
Yes.
Okay? For all y'all dummies out there who actually thought this might be is.
Hopefully nobody.
Hopefully not. No, there's definitely people who have no idea what that is. Anyways, moving on. So we have some American astronauts and we got some Russian astronauts. And they're up there on the I.S.S. And something happens down on Earth.
Yep.
And both parties are told in secret, take command of the I.S.S. by any means necessary. So we had the chance of seeing this or Founders Day, and we decided on this one. We are seeing Founders Day tomorrow, so we will report back on that mañana. But we saw this last night, and okay, it's definitely a very like Hollywood looking movie.
Yeah.
It's got a very good production quality to it. The special effects and all that stuff with the outside of the ship and the attention to detail within the ship and the weightlessness. Like, they did a really good job on convincing me that they were on the space station and that they were out in space. That stuff was good. The acting from everyone is good. I mean, they got competent actors and everything, and the premise is good.
Yeah.
Right? This is that like isolation, kind of like The Thing.
Right.
Who can you trust? And every death is all around you. You can't run anywhere.
Right.
Right? Almost like a Titanic or whatever. So all the ingredients are there for a good movie, but I just didn't like this movie much.
Me either.
And what it really came down to for me was the writing of the characters. Like, I think the characters' interactions with one another within the film, trying to set up their chemistry and all that, was fine. Nothing I was like super on board with, like, oh, I really love these people. And not something where I'm like, oh, these people are insufferable. It was kind of just like, okay, you've established them as humans. They're okay. And as long as the journey with them is entertaining, right, I'm gonna be in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, take a movie that's kind of similar, Underwater, with Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
Right? We don't, outside of like TJ Miller, who's like the comedic relief character, and maybe a little stuff with like a person, like the captain or something, talking about how they want to get home to their daughter or whatever, setting up some character development there. What really works about that movie is the intensity of the situation and how thrilling everything feels.
Yeah.
The character development in that movie isn't massive, but there's enough to keep you going.
Yeah.
And I feel like they tried that here to a degree, and we do get some from characters, somebody's reasons for wanting to go home, or somebody's reasons for, their allegiance to someone else on the ship, or whatever. All that stuff is kind of there.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the stakes really never feel fully realized, because I just don't feel like things ever really escalate to the level that they should on board.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't get enough time with the characters too. I think it felt kind of rushed.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because I wanted to see more of their interactions with each other and like see the relationships be really developed, so that when you are now put in a situation where you're like, who do I trust? I think that would have had more impact and be more dramatic. And I also felt like the movie was pretty predictable as
Yes.
well. Like there's a lot of things that they kind of introduce in the beginning that you're
This is set up for
like it's a
later.
setup, yeah, and it just didn't. It felt very on the nose and very like not subtle, and I didn't like that. I mean, yeah, I think the acting's fine, and the general like premise, of course, is cool, but it really didn't work for me. And I think it's mostly, I think it really was, for me, it's mostly those two things that I mentioned, though, like that it was predictable and that we didn't get enough time with the characters.
Pretty much everything in this film is anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's a huge issue. When you have a premise like this, you really need to build on tension with more tension on top of more tension, on top of more thrills, on top of stakes, on top of betrayals, on top of, that's what this kind of movie needs.
Yeah.
Right? If you take a film like 10 Cloverfield Lane,
Right.
where you have that like isolation and it's like, who do you trust? And it's just a constant elevation and tension of just like, this is getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And it just never happened here. And I think that's because they just never seem to really follow through on the intentions of characters, whether they were nefarious or not. And there's like, I don't want to give anything away, so this isn't meant to be spoilery, but if you might take this as spoiler, I'm going to try to be as vague about it as possible. But there's a scene where something happens to one of the crew members. And a lot of people, of course, on board, everybody on board is like, oh shit, right? Now there's some people that are in on this.
Right.
But there's like this adamant desire to go and do something about it.
Yes.
That they talk about very aggressively.
Right.
And then it just doesn't happen.
I know, that really
and you were like,
me, because it was like,
what is happening here?
Yeah.
I don't understand. It felt like it was cut out of the film or something.
Yeah, it did.
So like, I'm going. I'm doing this. And it's like so aggressive and so like the point of the movie for like 10 straight minutes. And then and then just doesn't happen.
I think that's a great example.
Like, what?
And like when you watch the film, if you watch it, like you'll know exactly what we're talking about. But yeah, that felt just very like, why even have it be in there if there's not going to be any like resolution or.
And then that kind of resolves itself later on its own. And then that doesn't amount to anything.
It doesn't really, yeah. But I'm like, okay, so they wanted to not. It's hard because we're talking like around it, but regardless, it was definitely a disappointment because I like the trailer, and again, the premise is really cool, and I think that they had potential with that, but it was a disappointment, and like I overall just didn't like the film.
So a similar film to this that is leagues better, that this film I felt like potentially had the potential.
Potentially had the potential to be,
somewhere on that level, if it had been done correctly, is Gravity with Sandra Bullock.
I haven't seen that.
That was a wonderfully thrilling experience in theaters. Like that one tripped me out. That was so tense and so wild when I went and saw that.
Yeah, space as a concept is like really scary, especially like it's one of my fears is like being lost in space.
Of course.
And I think obviously the closest parallel we have is underwater things, of course. Like it's the same kind of situation, but I don't know. This one didn't, I mean, it felt dangerous, but it also didn't feel like that much more dangerous than being like on a ship or something. I don't know. When you think of space though, I always think it's like so much more dangerous than like literally anything else.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like that intensity in this.
And I've seen quite a few movies like this, right? Like over the years, I've definitely seen similar concepts, whether it be in space or whether it be in, some far away, hard to reach location where they're like, you've got to keep this secret. You can't let this information out. And people are turning on each other. It's the typical, who can you trust?
Yeah.
everyone's got their secrets, that kind of stuff. And it just, I don't know, just so many characters don't really take it to a level that makes it exciting.
Right.
And you don't really have anyone that you're truly rooting for.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be rooting for like the main girl, I guess, but she's kind of a dud of a character, to be honest. Like I don't think her performance is bad, but I don't think it's particularly like entertaining or engrossing or relatable.
Well, we needed more time. We needed more time with her to really like get to know her, because like, yeah, I didn't dislike her character, but like, because we get a little bit of backstory, and I'm like, that's really cool backstory. Like, I wish we could have like gone into that more and like gotten a sense of like her character and personality more, but we don't. So it makes it hard to connect, because you're just kind of like, and she's supposed to be the one that we connect to as viewers, because like stuff starts happening like almost immediately, and she's new, and we're supposed to project in through her eyeballs, but yeah. I don't know.
And there's like a romance too that's on board, and that's supposed to elevate the stakes and allegiances, and it just really doesn't. I don't know. I just, as I said, the best word I have for this film is anticlimactic. And in a film like this that is literally meant to be built on climax after climax, thrilling excitement after deception after, and just everything kind of just going, everything would build to something and it would happen or not happen, and you'd be like,
okay,
cool. Okay. And then the movie just kind of abruptly ends and leaves you in this very dark place of, and I get the ending. I don't exactly particularly have any super major gripes with the film, but because the ending also in itself feels abrupt and anticlimactic, in addition to all the other stuff that happened, like if we had built to this place where that ending was kind of a gut punch of like ambiguity, and it's like, oh man, something like Inception, that leaves on this like cliffhanger of, oh no, what does that mean? And it's like, what does it mean to you? And that's great, right? Because it builds and it builds and it builds, and then it doesn't end the way like you think it's going to end. It ends on this kind of like subtlety of, is it or isn't it?
Yeah, and you're like, that's not, this one doesn't do that. I think the film needed another like 30 minutes. It needed more time.
If the film was better for it, sure.
Yeah.
Right? But if the film is the quality it is here, and I had to sit through 30 more minutes, I would have been pissed off. I think it needed
30 more minutes of character development.
Yeah. It's either 90 minutes too long.
Right.
Or it's 30 minutes too short.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. It's either got to be better or don't exist at all. I don't think this is going to be a movie that anybody loves.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So I wouldn't go see it unless you are like
desperate,
really a space fan. I don't know, and you watch every space movie that comes out.
I got 100 friggin' space movies off the top of my head I could give you that are much better uses of your time than this shit. I'm not going to list them here, but watch Gravity. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you have. Everybody.
And Inception.
You didn't see
it.
it.
If you haven't seen Inception for some reason, which
that's
I feel like everybody's.
Interstellar's in space,
Interstellar.
And that movie
Why did
rules.
I say Inception? I meant Interstellar.
Oh, okay. All right.
I said Inception.
Yeah. Watch all of Nolan's movies. All right, guys.
Bye.